This is F.D. Recovery, where we interview addicts and alcoholics.
Our aim is that through this podcast, we might help you on your journey of recovery.
Thank you for listening.
Hello, this is Frank with F.D. Recovery. I am your host, and today I have...
My name is Shelly.
And her name is Shelly.
In case y'all didn't know.
In case y'all motherfuckers didn't know. Excuse my language, of course. All right. So if you guys didn't know what this is the weekly intention. Essentially what we do is we go week to week with topics, spiritual principles, whatever we want to work on during that week. We come back, chat about it, and then set a new one for the next week, right? So this week will be tolerance. So you guys can tolerate the way that sounded right now.
Tolerate the podcast.
Yeah, tolerate. So
the ability or willingness.
You're jumping ahead there a little bit.
To not get ahead.
But before we dive into tolerance...
Can you edit that out?
No, that's staying forever.
Okay.
In the sands of time. So before we go into tolerance, we will recap on judgment. All right. So way judgment worked for me this week was great because that's all I dealt with.
You tell you being on the back end of things with him, guys. You're lucky to be listening once a week and not more often than that.
So, but before we dive into the whole judgment thing, I just wanted to acknowledge a loss. Charlie Kirk passed, and I just wanted to throw some love out there. I know that the family won't listen to this because we're such a small podcast, but people out there that are listening and, free speech and all that, I'm a big proponent on that. Don't like to get political, but somebody died and it was kind of a big deal, and it affected me, and it affected a lot of people I know because the symbolism out of it, right? I'm a proud American, and a lot of people out there are too, and it just kind of stung, right? But that's also leading into the whole judgment thing, is that kind of was the catalyst for it, differences of opinion. A lot of politics came up in my life, and although I won't discuss it here, it just brought up a lot of different behaviors that I saw in people, people celebrating somebody dying. And that was just kind of hard for me to digest, right? This whole like, we're glad he's dead type deal. And but I'm not celebrating, that kind of speech is just like, what?
Judgment is hard. When something big happens and hit this country and different parts of it, it's easy to jump down that rabbit hole no matter what side of the fence you are on.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing, right? Is because no matter right or left, above all, we are human, and although people have their own rates of recovery and also own perspectives, right? All I know is anything that I'm attached to, if it allows me to celebrate someone's death, that's not good. If we're dealing with somebody as, it's not like Osama bin Laden died, like somebody that is a mass terrorist or something like that. It was somebody that spoke their mind and spoke their faith. And for people that walk any faith, and for me, like, the thing that I appreciate most about where we live and how we operate is everybody's right to practice their faith and say what they need to say, and whether bad, good, indifferent, right? It doesn't matter. Just because they don't believe what you believe doesn't mean that it's wrong, right? And looking past some of the politics and past some of the judgments that we can carry around, it's just like, where's the human compassion?
The bottom line is that a life was lost and lives are lost each day, but the lives that are lost is sometimes we fail to acknowledge that they were once a baby they once were born with the purest of intentions. They were somebody's son, they were somebody's daughter, they were somebody's, they were somebody to someone. Whether you disagree with any other part of that, that's the fact.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to separate all of the emotion aside and just acknowledge that, and be okay with what it is,
Yeah.
or else it gets a little
Some of my judgment came with the whole aspect of, hearing some of these people talk and like, fuck that guy. All right. And I'm like, okay, well, that's your opinion. Cool. Oh, but I feel bad for his family. Oh God, it's so tragic. But fuck that guy. I'm like, oh yeah, if you said that to the family, they'd feel great about you saying that, right? Some things you just keep to yourself, and that's one thing I've learned with this whole thing, right? And it was really hard not to judge that. It's like,
you struggled.
Yeah,
I watch it.
I
You really
struggled.
struggled this week with so many different things, and navigating your way through something that hit you emotionally was not something that I've, in the last 4 or 5 plus years now that I've been with you, that I've seen you deal with. I mean, it was an emotional roller coaster, and it's interesting that somebody that you didn't necessarily know. And for listeners out there, if you have somebody that you may not know them, but if they're if what I don't know, it just hit you in such a way. I guess I don't know how to process what I'm saying.
Well, the fact of the matter is, I listened to him. I enjoyed his content. Didn't agree with everything he said. But the fact is, I respected his unique way of being able to speak where he was coming from, his beliefs, and that's just bottom line, right? And I really respected the conversations that I watched, right? And I got a lot of people in my ear about who he was, and I know 100% they have not seen more content of him than me. I promise you that. It's not possible. I followed him. I followed him for years. I don't see it. Somebody hating on him. Most people derive their hate from bits and sound bites or whatever, and that's just really life. They take the small amount that they know about something, they hate it. What hate does is it stops you from investigating to a deep level, because the hatred won't allow you to. Right. And what happens is you get these preconceived notions, or you get half knowledge with half truth, and you just run with it, right? The fact is, right, the reason it affected me on such a deep level is the human part of it. This man was a husband. This man was a father, and I remember holding my daughter tight those next couple days, just cherishing, like, man, this could be gone at any second. Just be, as something as simple as somebody doesn't like what I say. And that really hit hard, because where we're at, as spiritual beings and humans, it's really tough to digest. I never want that to be the norm, right? And I was scared. I was like, I felt fear on a level that that I can't really explain. I watched the video, and I hate to get into this, guys, but this is what I dealt with this week. And this is part of my, what the whole judgment thing, right? We get the real, and sometimes it comes out this way, but I watched the video,
Frank,
and yeah, I just watched the video, and it was a violent, savage display of what happens when you allow your beliefs to become more important than another person's life, right? And it's just, where I'm at today, and some of the tools I had to use, right? And some of the arguments that I got in with family members, and some of these these people that celebrate some of the heinous things out there, and then in the end call themselves good. It's just, that's where my judgment hit the pinnacle of struggle. Is I don't believe you. You're high-fiving about someone's death when he wasn't a criminal. He didn't do any harm to anyone else as far as criminal, anything like that. So your justification is purely personal. So that means you, on a personal level, found enjoyment from somebody else's death, right? And it was just really hard to move through, especially when we're on judgment, right? That was a hard one. So
moving forward, judgment obviously is not something that we're ever going to be away from, but it gave you a real opportunity to practice all of these faiths and these principles that you talk about on a week-to-week basis, because this is a big deal, and you really had to pick up every tool in your tool belt to get through it. Hence, this week's conversation on tolerance is, what are you willing to tolerate? What are you not willing to tolerate? And what does that look like for you in your recovery and your mental health?
Yeah. Well, go ahead and since you were so eager in the beginning to read the definition.
You're going to edit that out, right?
No,
Like we
no,
talked.
that's
Okay. I feel like
it's
I just
going
ignored
in.
you. Okay, so a tolerance, according to the Google, which comes from Oxford,
Ooh.
the ability or willingness to tolerate something, in particular, the existence of opinions or behavior that one does not necessarily agree with. Also, in a more physical aspect, the capacity to endure continued subjugation to something, especially a drug, and transplant, antigen, or environmental conditions without adverse reaction. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I can't remember if we did tolerance or not. I didn't look it up. I just, it was the
Felt right.
spiritual, it was a spiritual principle I need to work on
Mm-hmm.
due to some of the stuff that's happening in in life and mainstream media, my spiritual warfare, right? The tolerance aspect is, I believe that myself and the world out there, we need tolerance, right? Is watching something as gruesome as I watched this week, it affected me on a very soulful, humanistic level to where I just can't, it was hard for me, right?
Yeah.
And if we could all practice a little bit more tolerance about what other people think, feel, right? We should be able to hold space for even somebody to be incorrect, right? That's how we learn, right? And understanding that if we have different beliefs as far as religion, like I'm not going to change you, and why would I want to, right? And that's the whole thing of tolerance, is getting into these spaces where you can celebrate each other instead of tear each other down, right? And that's kind of my goal for tolerance this week, is just trying to better my own behavior, based off of the person I want to be in the future, and the person I want to be right now, and connecting those, because sometimes we can get to these, man, I really want to do this, that, and put all these goals out, right? I want to be more compassionate, I want to be more tolerant, I want to exercise more, I want to do all these things, right? And obviously we're going to fall short. That's the human experience, right? But when it comes to this compassion and some of these traits of spirituality, that's kind of the cornerstone for some of our recovery, and that keeps us sane. I can't come on here and pretend that I haven't done some heinous shit in my life. The reality is I've walked in the darkness, and today my walk with the light and with God and my spiritual journey is, I need to practice these things. It's the essential piece to what we got going on. And when I witness people being so malicious, evil, practicing in the darkness, it reminds me of my own shortcomings and how evil I've been in the past, and the cognitive choice to wake up today and know that I'm going to have struggles, but today I'm going to choose things like tolerance, choose things like compassion. But boy, is it tough, right? Because nobody else is doing that. Maybe some of your support group and, some people out there, there's good people, but most people aren't going, well, I'm going to go out there and kill it in tolerance and just try to be a better person. People got bills, jobs, woke up late. There's so many things that get in the way of that.
I think that acknowledging that right there is huge, because we don't know what other people are dealing with, and I say that probably on a regular basis now on these podcasts. But while you were going on what you were about your journey with tolerance right now, one thing I saw online is, what is tolerance in relation to the recovery community, because that's what this is about, our drugs and our addiction and our behaviors, and how all of those came to pass and what we can do better about them. So, what I'm reading here, it says, in recovery, tolerance refers to both the ability to endure distress and the virtue of accepting others' different viewpoints and behaviors. In my experience, I deal with a lot of people that don't obviously have the same views as I do, whether they're minimal or maximum, it doesn't matter. And being open-minded and being willing, something that we're taught early on in recovery to deal with our own selves, is something that as we move through this journey that we have, that we can continue practicing to every avenue of our life. Because by being open and willing and shutting up and listening to the other person, even if you don't agree with them, is sometimes the right way to move about things, and how tolerance can really be a make or break it sort of tool in building healthy relationships,
Mm.
no matter what those look like. It goes on to say, developing distress tolerance helps individuals cope with difficult emotions and situations without returning to the cover up, without returning to the drug or the alcohol to cover up those uncomfortable feelings and emotions. Because for me, if I have somebody that disagrees with me, then I'm constantly looking for ways to prove that I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, looking back in hindsight, those people are doing the same thing I'm doing. So they're looking for the right, you're looking for the right. Neither person is listening to the other, and therefore you have this vicious circle, and this continuing bout of frustration.
Yeah.
And take all of that out, you're left with what? You're left with feeling of, and for me, anger and hurt and rage. And old me would say, well, fuck all of that. And then I would alcohol, drugs, whatever, to cover up that emotion, to deal with it instead of just sitting it and processing it. So for me, differences and opinions and viewpoints, there's a reason for them, and everybody has good intentions. But to be tolerant and to be open and willing and just be there to listen and accept that other person, but recognize that you may not get anywhere with what you're trying to say or with what they're trying to say, can really make for a better outcome.
Well, on some of that, I believe that, yeah, everybody has intentions. I don't know about good, but I do believe that I can piggyback on that, because you're right. People, see, I recently looked up moral, oh man, what was it called? It was moral relativism. So basically, I heard someone talking about it in a video, and then I looked it up. Basically, what moral relativism is, it's basically you move through this life with not any set beliefs or moral values, and you just almost just kind of make it up as you go, right? So that's why it's super, like, you got to be careful with spirituality, right? It's, obviously I'm not here to say, well, you should believe in that and that, but make sure that when you're moving through this spirituality, that your core values is based off something good, right, and just, right? Because what happens is, if you're just kind of making up your moral compass as you go, right, you can start rationalizing things that necessarily feel good in the moment, or you think is a good thing in the moment, because you're kind of making it up as you go.
Irrational justification.
Yeah, that's the problem with some of what goes on in this world, is everybody, either they're godless, or they want to be in touch spiritually or whatever, and they're kind of just making it up as they go. Well, this is good, well, that's good, and they're listening to politics or whatever to let them hijack their mind, and they're not really getting rooted into the Word of God. They're not doing any meditation. They're not trying to get, spiritual with anything. And I think that's a path that you can go down, and you can, when I had my version of moral relativism, what it looked like was, I pretended I was spiritual and I was all these things, right? And I was doing meditation, and but I didn't have any direction, and it was more rooted in ego, right? And I was just kind of making up my moral compass as I went along. and I was doing things in my life that I wasn't necessarily proud of, and I was feeling the backlash on the end of it spiritually, and I didn't really know it until I did when I did step work with my sponsor. I didn't realize that's what kind of led me to taking a hiatus off of relationships for about 8 months, is because I realized like I was just rationalizing my way to being, doing all these things, like being a fucking major slut, right? That was one of my things I really had to work on, because I was using somebody else to change the way I felt, and it was just like drug use, right? And but it also was connected to this moral relativism, where I just kind of made it up as I go. And the problem with that is when you don't have a set in stone boundaries and morals and principles. That's why we do this week to week, is because I want to set out principles that I'm working on, that I create as my core values, instead of just kind of being like, in the wind about stuff, because then I'll be more prone to be like, okay, this sounds like a good movie. Oh, you know what? My morals I don't really have them, because I'm making up as I go. So this sounds good right now, because
So those of you that might be early in recovery, I'm really good at interrupting you today, but irrational justification in correlation with what you're saying.
yeah.
If people don't know this, because it's kind of a term that you hear maybe early on, but it can take a while, if not years, for somebody to understand. So Google, again, Oxford, Google, an irrational justification is an excuse, reason, or explanation for an action, decision, or belief that is illogical, unsound, or based on flawed reasoning rather than on sound logic or evidence. So with Frank being a slut in his early recovery, maybe like, well, I don't
most
know,
of my life.
what was your reason that justified that? I'm curious, because I know a lot of people, they do 13th stepping in their early relationship. Kind of an interesting little off topic, but
the way I went about it was like, I'm not hurting anyone. I'm not hurting anyone, and if I use honesty, right? if I'm honest, and I was being honest, right? If I use honesty, say I don't really want any attachment and all that, but then you end up in a room at a meeting with 4 of those women
tension.
all at the same time, and you've made no any commitment to any one of them, but it was weird. I felt my attention split, and I'm like, oh, this is not something I enjoy, right? I don't want to show this person attention, because I'm afraid that person, even though they all know that I have no commitment to them, I felt myself unwell, and I felt myself where I didn't want to be, right? But that road to it was kind of a moral compass set astray, and I didn't have any direction, and I was just like making it up as I went, because I know if I had my core tenets in place with morals, well, what my journey would have been is like, that's not who I am. And I wouldn't be talking to that woman. I wouldn't be talking to that other one and that other one. There would be these roadblocks and blocks in place, because I care about what walk I walk today. And what happens is, back then, when I'm just making it up as I go, humility's not entering the picture. All these things like compassion and empathy aren't entering the pictures. And in the end, if you don't have those core values set in place, then you're going to be a victim to your own behaviors.
Thank you for explaining yourself. It's just, you hear a lot about this, but
Sign
you
the
don't hear
confession.
like unless you're sitting down working with the sponsor, a lot of people don't talk about that like emotional piece that you just discussed. It's kind of, again, maybe you probably did share that with your sponsor. I'm going into a different rabbit hole here, but that's a big piece of what I'm hearing when it comes to this moral relativism and tolerance and, making up it as you go. It doesn't work.
The way I saw it as I was playing God. I made the rules. I made the moral justifications.
So therefore I'm right.
Then I'm correct. And then what it did is, where was I? In self-will, right? Because I had no direction. I didn't answer to no God. So who
and because you were being honest to a point, it was okay.
Yeah, if I'm honest, but then I was living a life that didn't align with my true goals. My goal was, I want a family. I want to be married again. recognize I said again because there is a divorce. But I want to be married again, and I want to because at the core of it, I want to live a life. I want to live with the family, and I want that in my life because it's something I didn't have and I really want. And not because I didn't have it, it's because I really want it. Right?
There's the difference.
And I really had to take a look at this because I'm like, okay, so these behaviors aren't going to do that. And
you mean you can't have 4 women?
No, that's a trick. Well, you don't want 4 women at all, really. I mean,
it's a lot of 4 hormones.
I get enough with one, right? But
what are you saying? I don't have multiple personalities.
Well,
Okay, different topic, different day.
Pick up your shit.
Can we talk about the coffee pods with the new coffee maker? Like the laundry situation and the boxers that we've heard about before. So now guys, it's a coffee pod, coffee maker right there. New coffee pod. He puts it in, takes the old one out. The trash can is literally right there.
Where did I put it?
Right next to the fucking coffee, like right in front of the Keurig. Not in the trash can, not like, it's just like this dirty old pod right there. So I go to make a cup of coffee. I have to throw away mine and his. Like the magical little cleaning elves we talked about last night. Like you leave your fucking trash everywhere and you think these magical little elves just come up behind you and he's like, why you talk about the cleaning elves?
I said, I said, you know about the cleaning elves?
God, I know people in relationships there might understand what I'm going through, but please pray for me. If you believe in that.
I don't want to ruin a good thing with these cleaning elves. So
my tolerance level is really starting to drop. And
there we go.
Dear diary.
So, getting back to the whole the recovery and intertwining it, right? It's very crucial if you want to live a spiritual life and you want to manifest these things in your life. You really you have to practice tolerance, right? Because what happens is you block yourself from your blessings when you don't allow tolerance in your life. And I'll give you good examples, right? Because what happens is if you don't practice tolerance, you close doors, right? Those doors, if you would have had open and connected and talking with people, could really alter your life, right? In moments of where I could have helped, moments where I could have been open and sharing and be there for somebody, if I allow intolerance into the picture, I'll close my heart. My heart will not be made of flesh. It'll be made of stone, right? And that's the key
Don't
thing.
Want to be a stoner.
No, I'm tired of being a stoner.
Sorry. Had a lot of sugar today.
So, getting back to that whole, you'll block yourself from your blessings because, it goes back to that ancient golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated. And you know what? I like to be treated good, right? So what does that mean? I got to start treating people with kindness. And, and we talked about this, not nice. Nice is a whole different ballgame. Nice, you can be nice to someone's face, and as soon as they leave the room, you be talking big shit, right? So what kindness means I'm going to practice this no matter if you're here or if you're around. I'm going to be kind to myself and others around me, right? And it comes from a place of
integrity.
That too, but it comes from that place of active love, right? When you start, that's why we did love a couple of times ago. It's like, it's important that when you're doing these practices of love and compassion and tolerance, like all this stuff these are action words, right? They're not just like tolerance and stuff like that. We're tolerance, right? And when you get to that point, I'm practicing some tolerance right now because my wife is making some hand gestures, and I don't want to put her on blast, but just know that I'm in a spiritual principle right now, guys.
I don't know what he's talking about. I'm just sitting here drinking lemonade.
So remember, guys, practice tolerance. If you're cold-hearted, that's what you're gonna receive. What you give is what you get, man.
Drink your own Kool-Aid.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't particularly, if it's sugar-free, then I will drink Kool-Aid, but
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. All right, so this week, practice tolerance.
Big and little, practice it.
big and little, practice it. Yeah, whatever that means, guys. Just make sure.
You can tolerate a significant other's lack of hand gestures, and you can tolerate other people's political beliefs, big and little.
Yeah, the main thing is to be human, man. Remember that we're all here. We're gonna fucking make mistakes, guys. We're gonna all be learning. We just kind of wake up here on the planet one day and expect to learn all these things, right? And so just be tolerant of one another, and yeah, that's all we got. Anything
Peace,
you want to
love, and no hippie dust.
All right, later, guys. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to FD Recovery. A reminder, be kind to yourself on this journey of recovery. Also, call your sponsor, get connected to local support groups, and for one day at a time, stay clean and sober.